The war is over. That is what everyone whispers. And if the war is over, Vila reasons, then she is free. She has paid her debt, healed their wounded, stitched their soldiers back together, and swallowed her pride for 9 long months. Now she stands before the throne and asks for one simple thing: permission to go home. She does not beg, does not weep, does not drop to her knees like the courtiers expect. She simply asks, quietly and with dignity, because she has earned that much. The Alpha King Tavon looks at her from his throne of blackened iron. His face reveals nothing. Those gray eyes, cold as winter stone, move over her like she is a problem he is calculating. Then he speaks. Seal every gate in the kingdom. The court stops breathing. Guards exchange confused glances. His own advisors lean forward, certain they misheard. But Vila heard him perfectly. She asked to leave quietly. He locked the entire kingdom to keep her in. Now the court is whispering. Now the rumors are spreading like fire through dry grass, and everyone wants to know the same thing. Why would the most ruthless Alpha King in 3 centuries trap the one woman who wanted nothing from him except to disappear? Vela had practiced this moment 47 times. In the quiet hours before dawn, while the palace slept, she had rehearsed the words until they sat smooth on her tongue. Measured, respectful, impossible to refuse. She had calculated the exact angle of her bow, the precise tone of her voice, the careful blankness of her expression. She had prepared for negotiation, for conditions, for cold dismissal. She had not prepared for this. Seal every gate. The words echoed through the throne room, bouncing off marble columns and settling into the shocked silence like stones dropped into still water. Vela's hands, clasped in front of her, tightened until her knuckles ached, her heart hammered against her ribs. But she did not let her face move. She had learned long ago that showing fear to predators only made them hungrier. Your Majesty. She kept her voice level. I do not understand. Tavon rose from his throne. The movement was slow, deliberate, the kind of rising that made everyone in the room instinctively step back. He was tall. She had forgotten how tall. Broad shoulders blocked the gray light from the windows behind him, casting his scarred face into shadow. He descended the steps. 1, 2, 3. Each footfall deliberate. Vila held her ground. The courtiers did not. They parted like water around a blade as he passed, pressing themselves against pillars, finding sudden interest in the floor. He stopped 3 feet from her, close enough that she could see the pale scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, close enough that his scent reached her. Iron, wood smoke, and something colder beneath. You have served well, he said. His voice was low, rough, like gravel under boots. Then let me go, Vila replied. No. The word was simple, final. A door slamming shut. Something hot flared in her chest. Pride, maybe, or fury. 9 months she had spent in this frozen kingdom. 9 months healing soldiers who had killed her people. 9 months biting her tongue until it bled. She had earned her freedom. I am not a prisoner, she said. No, he agreed. Then why am I being treated like one? His head tilted slightly. Those storm-colored eyes studied her with an expression she could not read. Assessment, calculation, an emotion that flickered too quickly to name. You are not leaving, he said. That is not negotiable. You cannot keep me here forever. The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Something colder. I am the king, Vela. I can do whatever I wish. He turned and walked back toward his throne, dismissing her like she was nothing. Like the conversation was over. Like he had not just shattered every plan she had carefully built for 9 months. Vela's nails bit into her palms. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to throw something at his arrogant head and watch it shatter against that throne of blackened iron. But she was not a fool. So she swallowed the rage, buried it deep where it could burn quietly, and forced herself to bow. "As your majesty commands." The words tasted like ash. She turned to leave, and then a voice rang out across the throne room, small and bright and utterly out of place. "Vela." Her throat tightened. She knew that voice. Footsteps pattered across marble, quick and uneven, and then a small body collided with her legs. Arms wrapped around her waist with fierce, desperate strength. Vela looked down. Senna stared up at her with wide eyes, one amber, one dark brown, her face flushed from running, dark hair tangled around her small face. "You cannot leave," Senna said, her small voice trembling. "You promised you would stay." Vela's breath caught. She looked up and found the king watching them. And for one heartbeat, something passed through those cold gray eyes, something that looked almost like pain. Then it was gone, and he turned away, and Vila was left standing in the throne room with a child clinging to her, and a kingdom sealed shut around them both. 3 months ago, Senna had been dying. Vila remembered it with perfect clarity. The night they brought the child in, limp and gray-skinned, breath rattling in her small chest like stones in a jar. The healers had already given up. Fever too high. Infection too deep. Just another war orphan who would not survive the winter. But Vela had not given up. She had worked through the night and into the next day, forcing medicine down the child's throat, changing poultices every hour, singing the old healing songs her grandmother had taught her. Songs from her homeland, songs the conquerors had tried to burn out of existence. Somewhere near dawn, when the fever finally broke, Senna had opened her eyes and whispered, "Do not leave me." And Vila, exhausted and raw, had said, "I will stay. I promise." She had meant until the child recovered. Senna had heard forever. From that moment, the child had attached herself to Vila like a shadow. "Where are we going?" Senna asked now, her hand tight around Vila's fingers as they walked through the palace corridors. "Somewhere quiet," Vila said. Her mind was still spinning. The king's refusal, the sealed gates. None of it made sense. She had no value to him. She was not nobility, not leverage, not a strategic asset. She was simply a healer from a conquered kingdom who had served her purpose. "Why keep her?" Senna tugged her hand. "You look angry." "I am not angry. Your eyebrows are doing the thing." Vila forced her face to relax. "What thing?" "The scrunchy thing." Senna demonstrated, scrunching her small face into a comical frown. "Papa Torvin does it too when he is angry but pretending not to be." Vela stopped walking. "Papa Torvin?" Senna nodded, utterly matter of fact. "He said I could call him that. He saved me from the village when the bad soldiers came. He carried me all the way back on his wolf." Vela stared at the child. She had heard rumors, of course. Everyone had heard rumors about the orphan girl the king had brought back from the war, but Vela had assumed it was politics, a calculated gesture to appear merciful. She had not considered that it might be genuine. "Does he visit you?" Vila asked carefully. "Every day," Senna said. "Well, most days. He is very busy being scary to people, but he always comes to say goodnight. He is not very good at stories, though." She wrinkled her nose. "He only knows ones about battles. They are boring." Something stirred behind her ribs, a crack in the wall she had built. She crushed it immediately. The man was still a conqueror. Still the reason her kingdom burned. Still the reason her brother was dead, her home was ash, her people scattered like leaves in a storm. One act of kindness did not erase an ocean of blood. "Come," she said, her voice harder than she intended. "Let us find somewhere to rest." They walked in silence after that. But Vila could not stop thinking about it. the image of the fearsome Alpha King carrying a dying child through a battlefield, telling her stories about battles because he did not know any others. It did not fit. Nothing about him fit. They turned a corner and nearly collided with a man in dark robes. Viola stepped back quickly, pulling Senna behind her. The man smiled. He was older, perhaps 50, with silver threading through dark hair and eyes the color of wet slate. His face was pleasant, almost kind, but something in his gaze made Viola's skin prickle. "Lady Viola," his voice was smooth. "And our little Senna. What a pleasant surprise." "She is not yours," Viola said before she could stop herself. Something about the word "our" had set her teeth on edge. The man's smile did not waver. "Of course not. Forgive me. I am Valdrich, chief advisor to His Majesty. We have not been formally introduced." He extended his hand. Vela did not take it. A flicker crossed his face. Irritation, quickly buried beneath that pleasant mask. "I understand you requested permission to leave," he said, withdrawing his hand smoothly. "A shame about the king's decision. Though I cannot say I am surprised. You know why he refused?" Valdrich's eyes moved to Senna, then back to Viola. A sharpness lived in that glance. "I have my theories." He smiled again, and this time it did not reach his eyes. "You have made yourself quite indispensable, Lady Vela. Some things are difficult to let go." He inclined his head and walked past them, robes whispering against stone. Her eyes followed him until he disappeared. "I do not like him," Senna whispered. "He smiles too much." Viola said nothing. But her instincts, the ones that had kept her alive through war and captivity and 9 months in an enemy palace, were screaming. Something was wrong here, and she was beginning to suspect the sealed gates had nothing to do with her at all. A week passed. The gates remained sealed. The rumors multiplied, and Viola found herself trapped in a cage of silk and stone, watching, waiting, trying to understand the shape of her prison. She was not confined to her chambers. She could move freely through the palace, visit the healing halls, and walk the gardens. But every exit was barred. Every road was blocked. And every time she tried to ask someone why, the answer was always the same: the king's orders. On the 7th day, Senna dragged her to the training grounds. "You have to see," Senna insisted, pulling her hand with surprising strength for such a small child. "Papa Tavon is teaching the new soldiers today. He is very impressive." "I have seen men fight before," Vela said dryly. "Not like him." They emerged onto a stone balcony overlooking the yard. Below, rows of young soldiers stood at attention. Some barely looked old enough to hold swords. They shifted nervously, eyes fixed on the figure standing before them. Tavon wore no crown today, no ceremonial armor, just simple training leathers that did nothing to diminish his presence. He moved through the ranks like a predator through tall grass, correcting stances, adjusting grips. His voice a low rumble that carried clearly through the cold air. Vela watched despite herself. She had expected brutality, expected him to break the weak ones, to rule through fear alone. Instead, she saw patience. He knelt beside a boy who had dropped his sword, showing him how to grip the hilt properly. He demonstrated a block 3 times for a soldier who could not master it. He did not raise his voice, did not strike anyone, did not humiliate. He taught. "He is good with them," she murmured, almost to herself. Senna beamed. "I told you." A commotion erupted at the far end of the yard. Vela's attention snapped toward it. A cluster of older soldiers had surrounded someone, voices rising, ugly and sharp. She caught fragments. "Southern filth. Should be dead. Why is it even here?" Her blood went cold. They had surrounded a boy, 13, maybe 14. Dark hair, olive skin, the features of her homeland. A refugee from the south, most likely. one of the few who had made it this far north. The soldiers were closing in. One shoved the boy hard. He stumbled, fell, did not get up. Viola was already moving. She did not think, did not calculate. Her legs carried her down the stairs and across the training yard before her mind caught up with her body. She pushed through the soldiers and dropped to her knees beside the boy. "Are you hurt?" He looked up at her with terrified eyes. Blood dripped from a split lip. "Get away from him," one of the soldiers growled. "This does not concern you, healer." Viola stood slowly. She was not tall, was not strong, was not armed. But she had survived 3 years of war, had held dying men together with her bare hands while battles raged around her, had looked death in the face so many times it had stopped frightening her. She met the soldier's eyes. "Touch him again," she said in a low voice, "and I will make sure the next wound you receive never heals properly. I know exactly which tendons to sever." The soldier blinked. Uncertainty flickered across his face. Then a shadow fell over them all. "Is there a problem?" The soldiers snapped to attention so fast Viola heard spines crack. Tavon stood behind her. She had not heard him approach. His gray eyes swept over the scene, the fallen boy, the blood, the ring of guilty soldiers, and danger settled into his expression. "Your Majesty," the lead soldier stammered. This southern boy, he was disrespecting the, was he? Tavon said flatly. "He was." "Well." The soldier's confidence crumbled. "He looked at us wrong. He looked at you wrong." "Yes, Your Majesty." Silence. Then Tavon moved. Fast, brutal, efficient. He grabbed the soldier by the throat, lifted him clean off the ground, and slammed him against the stone wall with enough force to crack the mortar. The soldier choked, feet dangling. "Anyone in this kingdom," Tavon said, his voice low and utterly terrifying, "may look at you however they wish. That is not a crime." "Do you know what is a crime?" the soldier wheezed. "Attacking a child," Tavon continued, "under my protection, in my kingdom, while I am watching." He released his grip. The soldier crumpled to the ground, gasping. "Every refugee in this kingdom has my protection." Tavon's voice carried across the yard. "Every wounded soldier, every orphaned child, every person who has nowhere else to go. If I hear of anyone being harmed for where they were born, the punishment will not be a warning." "Have I made myself clear?" "Yes, Your Majesty." The response came from every throat in the yard. Tavon turned. His eyes found Viola's. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then he looked at the boy on the ground, his expression shifting into something almost gentle. "Can you stand?" The boy nodded, scrambling to his feet. "Go to the healing halls," Tavon said. "Lady Vela will see to your injuries." He turned and walked away without another word. Her gaze lingered on his retreating form. Her pulse was racing. Her thoughts were tangled. She looked down at Senna, who had appeared beside her at some point, small hand finding hers. Senna was smiling. "I told you," she said softly. "He is not what they say." Viola said nothing. But across the yard she caught Valdrich watching from the shadows. His pleasant smile was gone. In its place was something predatory and patient, and Vela understood, with sudden clarity, that whoever the real enemy was in this palace, it was not the king. The summons came at midnight. Vela had been sleeping, or trying to, when the knock rattled her door. A servant stood outside, face pale in the torchlight. "The king requests your presence." "The healing chambers." "Now." She did not ask questions. She pulled on a robe and followed. The healing chambers were empty when she arrived. Empty except for Tavon, who stood by the window with his back to her, staring out at the snow-covered mountains. He did not turn when she entered. "You wanted to see me, Your Majesty?" Silence. Then, softly, "I owe you an apology." Viola blinked. Of all the things she had expected, that was not among them. "For the throne room," he continued. for refusing your request without explanation. It was not handled well." She waited. He turned finally, and the moonlight caught his face. He looked tired. Not the tiredness of a long day, but something deeper. Something that lived in the shadows beneath his eyes. "You are not a prisoner," he said. "I need you to understand that." "Then why can I not leave?" "Because leaving would kill you." The words landed like a blow. Viola's breath caught. "Explain." Torvin moved to the table in the center of the room and poured 2 cups of water. He pushed one toward her. "Drink. This will take time." She did not drink. She waited. He exhaled slowly. "There are people in this kingdom who want you dead, Viola. Powerful people. People I cannot simply arrest without evidence. Why would anyone want me dead? I am no one." His face changed. "You are not no one. You are?" He stopped speaking. Viola watched him struggle with words. This man who commanded armies, who had ended a war with brutal efficiency, was stumbling over a simple sentence. "You saved Senna," he said finally. "You saved dozens of soldiers in the healing halls. You have made yourself valuable. That makes me a target? It makes you leverage." His jaw tightened. "Against me." She stared at him. The implication settled slowly. If someone wanted to hurt the king, they would hurt the people he protected, the people he cared about. But that would mean he cared about her. And that made no sense at all. "I do not understand," she said carefully. "Why would hurting me harm you? You are the Alpha King. I am a healer from a conquered kingdom. We are nothing to each other." Torvin's hand tightened around his cup. He looked at her then. Really looked. And something in his gray eyes cracked open just for a moment. Something raw and unguarded and desperately tired. "You are not nothing," he said, voice low. "You have never been nothing." The room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. Her pulse jumped. She crushed it. "You destroyed my home," she said, her voice harder than she intended. "You killed my people. My brother died because of your war." He flinched. Actually flinched like she had struck him. "Yes," he said. "I know. Then do not pretend we are anything but what we are, conqueror and conquered, king and captive." The space between them felt electric. "I will never forget what you took from me, nor should you." He set down his cup and walked toward the door. He paused with his hand on the frame. "Stay inside the palace walls," he said without turning. "Do not trust anyone who approaches you with friendship. And if you see Valdrich, do not be alone with him." Then he was gone. Viola stood in the empty chamber, heart pounding and hands shaking. She should hate him. She did hate him. But for the first time since arriving in this frozen kingdom, she did not want to leave. And that terrified her more than any sealed gate. Senna had a plan. It was a very good plan. She had been working on it for 3 whole days. The plan was simple. Make Papa Torvin and Vela stop being so stubborn and realize they were supposed to be a family. Anyone with eyes could see it. The way Papa Torvin watched Viola when she was not looking. The way Viola's voice went soft when she talked to Senna about the king's orders. The way they both got awkward and strange whenever they were in the same room. It was exhausting. So Senna had taken matters into her own hands. Step 1. Invite them both to dinner. It had taken significant effort. She had asked Papa Torvin very nicely with her biggest eyes and her most pathetic expression, and he had agreed because he always agreed when she looked at him like that. She had asked Viola by simply refusing to eat unless the healer came to dinner, which Viola had called manipulation and Senna had called smart. Now they were all sitting at the small table in Papa Torvin's private chambers, and the silence was so thick Senna could have cut it with a butter knife. "This is nice," Senna announced, helping herself to bread. "We should do this every night." Vela made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been choking. Papa Torvin stared at his plate. "Tell Vela about the wolves," Senna prompted. She likes animals. She does? Torvin looked up, something almost hopeful in his expression. Viola went pink. I appreciate the natural world. Papa Torvin has 12 wolves. They are all named after stars. My favorite is Vega because she lets me ride on her back sometimes. She is very patient. Viola's eyebrows rose. You name your wolves after stars? Torvin shifted uncomfortably. They needed names. He knows all the constellations, Senna continued proudly. He taught me to find Orion last week. And the bear. The bear is my second favorite because it looks like a bear. Something softened in Viola's expression. That is you taught her the constellations? She asked. 3 words. He said 3 words, and looked like they had cost him his entire vocabulary. Senna suppressed a sigh. This was going to be harder than she thought. She kicked Papa Torvin under the table. He looked at her sharply. She widened her eyes meaningfully. Understanding dawned. Then panic. Torvin cleared his throat. I could teach you. The constellations. If you wanted. Viola stared at him. The silence stretched. Then, in a measured tone. Perhaps. If I am to be trapped here indefinitely, I might as well learn something useful. It was not a yes, but it was not a no. Senna grinned and reached for more bread. The dinner continued. Stilted at first, then slowly warming. Torvin told a story about Senna trying to ride 3 wolves at once. Vela laughed, actually laughed, and the sound made something bright bloom inside Senna. This was good. This was what family felt like. A knock interrupted them. The door opened and Valdrich stepped inside, his smile already in place. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. There is a matter requiring your attention. Senna's happiness curdled. She did not like Valdrich, had never liked him. He looked at her sometimes with an expression that made her feel small and cold, like she was a problem he was calculating how to solve. Now? Torvin's voice carried an edge. I am afraid it cannot wait. Torvin exhaled slowly. He pushed back from the table and stood. Then his hand went to the chair. His knuckles whitened. Your Majesty? Valdrich's voice was concerned. Too concerned. Are you quite well? Fine. Torvin's voice was strained. I am fine. But he was not fine. Senna could see it. The tremor in his hand, the way his jaw had locked tight, the slight unfocus in his eyes. Vela saw it too. She was already rising. Your Majesty. I said I am fine. He released the chair and walked toward the door. His steps were steady, controlled. But Senna had spent enough nights watching him through fever dreams to recognize the signs. He was not well. And as Valdrich followed him out, Senna caught the advisor's expression before the door closed. He was smiling, not the pleasant smile he wore for everyone else. Darker, satisfied. Senna's blood went cold. She found him in the corridor an hour later. He was on his knees. Vela had been returning to her chambers when she heard it. A crash, a snarl that broke apart halfway through. The sound of a body hitting stone. She ran. Torvin was halfway through the transformation when she reached him. Caught between forms, bones shifting wrong, muscles spasming, his body fighting itself like a man drowning in his own skin. Your Majesty. She dropped beside him. His eyes found hers. Gray darkening to black, human struggling against wolf, agony written in every line of his face. Go, he managed. Cannot stop, I am not leaving you. She pressed her hands to his chest. His heart was racing, stuttering, beating wrong. This was not a normal shift. This was something forced, something induced. Poison. The word surfaced in her healer's mind with cold certainty. Someone had poisoned him. Listen to me. She gripped his face, forced him to focus. Do not fight the shift. Let it happen. Hurts, I know, but your body is trying to protect itself. Let the wolf come. Trust your instincts. His hands clawed at the stone floor. His spine arched. A sound tore from his throat, agonized and raw. Then the transformation completed. The massive black wolf collapsed onto the corridor floor, chest heaving, eyes wild and unseeing. Vela did not move away. She laid her hand on his muzzle, gentle and steady, and began to sing. It was an old song, a healing song from her homeland. She had sung it to dying soldiers, to frightened children, to her brother when the nightmares came. The wolf's breathing slowed. The wildness in those dark eyes faded. Slowly, painfully, the great body relaxed. Viola kept singing until the tremors stopped, until his eyes closed, until his breathing settled into something like sleep. Then footsteps. Running. Senna burst around the corner, face white with terror. Papa Torvin. She threw herself at the wolf, small arms wrapping around his neck, face pressing into black fur. Is he dead? Is he dying? No. Viola's voice was calm. He will be all right. She hoped it was true. More footsteps. Guards arriving. Then Valdrich, face arranged into perfect concern. What happened? He collapsed. Vela watched Valdrich carefully. Something is wrong with him. Perhaps the strain of governance. Valdrich sighed. He pushes himself too hard. It was not strain. Valdrich's eyes met hers. Something passed between them. Understanding. Warning. Of course. Valdrich smiled. Whatever you say, Lady Vela, I will summon the physicians. He walked away. Viola turned back to the unconscious wolf, to Senna, who was crying silently into black fur. And she understood, with sudden cold clarity, that Valdrich had done this. She did not know why, did not know how, but she knew. She also knew she was going to find out. The king woke at dawn. Viola had stayed through the night. She told herself it was professional obligation, the healer's duty, nothing more. But when his eyes opened, gray and human and confused, the tension in her shoulders released. Senna was asleep in the corner, wrapped in Viola's cloak. Torvin's gaze found the child first, then moved to Vela. You stayed. Someone had to monitor your condition. She kept her voice brisk. Do you remember what happened? His brow furrowed. We were at dinner. Then you nearly died in a corridor. She finished. Someone poisoned you. A flicker crossed his features. Understanding. Then something darker. You suspect Valdrich? It was not a question. He was the last person to see you before the collapse, Vela said carefully, and his concern felt performed. Torvin was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly. He has been with me since I was a child. He served my father before me. People change. Viola's voice softened despite herself, or perhaps they simply reveal what was always there. Silence. There is something I must tell you, Torvin said finally. His voice had changed. Heavier. Older. Viola waited. Your brother. The words hit like ice water. What about my brother? Torvin closed his eyes. 2 years ago, the battle at Varanthos Ridge. I was wounded. Dying. Truly. An arrow through the chest, punctured lung, bleeding out. My own healers had given up. Vela's hands had gone cold. They brought me a southern healer. A prisoner. He looked at her then, and his eyes held something she had never seen in them before. Guilt. Raw and bottomless. He had eyes like yours. The same shade of brown. The same steady hands. No. He saved my life. Torvin's voice cracked. He worked through the night, refused to stop even when his own strength failed. He poured everything he had into keeping me alive. No, no, no. He died at dawn. Torvin continued, relentless, each word a blade. His heart gave out. He had pushed too hard, too long. He sacrificed himself to save me. Vela could not breathe. Her brother, her gentle, brilliant, stubborn brother, dead. Not in battle, not by sword. Dead because he saved the conqueror. I tried to find his family after, Tavon said, to tell them, to apologize, to offer whatever compensation I could. But the Southern records were destroyed in the fires, and I could not. You knew. Vila's voice came out hollow, broken. Tavon flinched. When I arrived here, she continued, the words scraping against her throat, when you saw my name, my face, you knew who I was, who he was to me. Yes. And you said nothing. I did not know how. She stood. Her legs felt distant. Her hands were shaking. 9 months, she said. 9 months I have been here. And you would have hated me. His voice was raw. More than you already did. I could not a sound from the doorway. They both turned. Senna stood frozen, eyes wide, face pale as snow. Papa? Her voice trembled. Viola. She had heard. She had heard everything, and now she was looking between them with the expression of a child watching her world crack apart. Senna Viola started, but Senna was already running, down the corridor, around the corner. Gone. Viola looked at Tavon. He looked back at her. Between them lay her brother's death, his guilt, 9 months of lies, and a child who had just lost her faith in both of them. Viola turned and walked away, and this time she was the one who did not look back. Senna ran until her lungs burned. She did not know where she was going, did not care. She just needed to be away from them, away from Viola's hollow voice, away from Papa Tavon's guilty eyes, away from the words that kept echoing in her head. He sacrificed himself to save me. Viola's brother had died saving Papa Tavon. And Papa Tavon had known the whole time, had brought Viola here, kept her here, and looked at her every day knowing what he had taken from her. Senna's eyes burned. She had believed in him, had believed he was good, that he was kind, that he was different from what everyone said. She had been wrong. Everyone lied. Everyone left. Everyone broke their promises. Papa. Her real Papa. He had promised to come back from the war. He had knelt down, looked her in the eyes, and promised. And then he had died. And she had waited at the village gates for 3 days before the soldiers came. Before the bad ones with the cruel smiles found her. Before she squeezed her eyes shut. She did not want to remember that part. Child. Senna's head snapped up. Valdrich stood at the end of the corridor, his face arranged into soft concern. Are you all right? You look distressed. Go away. The advisor did not go away. Instead, he walked closer, his robes whispering against the stone. I understand, he said gently. You heard something upsetting, something that changed how you see things. Senna said nothing. The king is not who you believed he was. Valdrich crouched to her level, eyes warm and sympathetic. None of them are. They have been lying to you, Senna, using you. That is not true. Is it not? Valdrich tilted his head. Think about it. The king brought you here to make himself look merciful. The healer stayed to gain his favor. And when the truth came out, they both chose to protect themselves instead of telling you. Senna's throat tightened. It was not true. It could not be true. But the doubt was there now, worming through her. I know how it feels, Valdrich continued softly, to believe in someone and discover they are not worthy of that belief. It is a special kind of betrayal. Senna's eyes stung. But there is someone who would never lie to you, Valdrich said. Someone who has been waiting to meet you for a very long time. Senna looked up. Who? Your mother. The word hit like lightning. My mother is dead. No, child. Valdrich's smile widened. She is alive. She has been alive all this time, and she has been searching for you. Something cracked open inside her. Something she had buried so deep she had forgotten it existed. Hope. Where? She is waiting outside the city. Valdrich stood and extended his hand. I can take you to her. Right now. But we must be quiet. The king cannot know. Why not? Because he would stop you. Valdrich's voice dropped to a whisper. He wants to keep you here forever, Senna. His little trophy. His proof that he can be kind. But you deserve to be with your real family. Senna looked at his hand. Something felt wrong. A small voice in the back of her mind, screaming at her to run. But the hope was louder. She took his hand. Good girl, Valdrich murmured. Come. Quickly and quietly. They moved through the palace by servants' corridors and hidden passages. Downstairs Senna had never seen. Through doors she did not know existed. The cold hit her when they stepped outside. Not the courtyard. Somewhere else. A small gate at the back of the palace grounds, barely visible beneath overgrown vines. Where are we? Almost there. Valdrich's grip on her hand tightened. Just a little further. They walked into the forest. The trees closed around them, blocking out the moonlight. The path narrowed, then disappeared entirely. Snow crunched beneath Senna's boots, loud in the silence. How much further? She was getting scared now. The wrong feeling was getting stronger. Valdrich did not answer. They emerged into a clearing. Empty. No mother. No one waiting. Just snow and shadows and the terrible certainty that she had made a mistake. Where is she? Senna's voice shook. You said my mother was here. Valdrich released her hand. When he turned to face her, the warmth was gone from his expression. The concern had vanished. What remained was something cold and empty and utterly without mercy. Your mother is dead, child. She has been dead for 3 years. Just like your father. Senna stumbled backward. Then why did you? Because you are useful? Valdrich drew a knife from beneath his robes. The blade gleamed in the moonlight. Not for what you are, but for what your death will accomplish. I do not understand. Tears were spilling down her cheeks now. Please, I want to go home. Home. Valdrich laughed softly. You have no home. You are an orphan, a nobody, a convenient piece in a game you cannot comprehend. He stepped closer. Senna's back hit a tree. The king has grown weak, Valdrich continued conversationally. Soft, he takes in refugees, abolishes punishments, listens to conquered healers instead of his own advisors. And why? Because a child asked him to be kind. Please, you are the infection, Senna. You and that southern woman. You have poisoned everything he was meant to be. But when they find your body with a southern blade in your chest, Valdrich smiled. The king will remember what he truly is. A conqueror, a destroyer. And the war will begin again. War makes this kingdom strong. It makes the king's reign powerful. And I will not have a foolish little girl and a conquered healer dismantle what I have spent decades building. Senna opened her mouth to scream. Valdrich's hand clamped over her face. No one can hear you out here, he whispered. I chose this place specifically. He raised the knife. Senna closed her eyes. Papa, she thought desperately. Papa Torvin. Please. Miles away, Vila was already running. A servant had seen them. A small girl and the king's advisor, slipping through the back passages, heading toward the old gate no one used anymore. The servant had told Vela. Vela had told the guards. And then she had followed the wolf tracks into the forest, because Torvin had shifted the moment he heard Senna was gone, poison or no poison. They found the clearing by following his howl. The blow never came. A roar split the night. Senna's eyes flew open. Something massive and black exploded from the trees. It hit Valdrich like a thunderbolt, tearing him away from Senna, sending the knife spinning into the snow. The wolf. Papa Torvin's wolf. But something was wrong. The wolf was stumbling, moving too slowly, the poison from earlier still in his blood, still weakening him. Valdrich recovered faster than he should have. He pulled a second blade, this one longer, darker, coated in something that made Senna's stomach lurch. "Foolish beast!" Valdrich snarled. "You should have stayed in your sick bed." The wolf lunged. Valdrich moved. The blade sank into the wolf's side. "No!" Senna's scream tore through the clearing as the massive body crumpled. The wolf hit the snow and did not rise, did not move. Valdrich stood over him, breathing hard, knife dripping. "Better," he said. "Now there will be no doubt who is responsible." He turned back to Senna. She could not move, could not breathe. Papa Torvin was dead. He had come for her, and now he was dead. And it was her fault. All her fault. Valdrich raised his knife again, and then arrows sang through the air. Valdrich spun. One arrow caught his shoulder, another his thigh. He screamed high and animal and staggered. Figures emerged from the trees. Guards, soldiers, and at the front, running faster than all of them, Vila. She crashed into the clearing like a storm, dropping to her knees beside the fallen wolf. No, no, no. Her hands pressed against the wound. Too much blood. There is too much blood. Seize him. A guard's voice. They descended on Valdrich, forcing him to the ground. Senna could not move. She watched Vela work. Watched her tear strips from her own clothing to staunch the bleeding. Watched her press her forehead against the wolf's muzzle and whisper words Senna could not hear. "Please," Senna heard. "Please do not die. I cannot. I need." The wolf's eyes opened, gray, human, focused on Viola's face. Then they slid to Senna. "Safe?" The word came out as a growl, barely comprehensible. "Safe?" Senna broke. She ran to him, threw herself against his fur, sobbing so hard she could not breathe. "I am sorry," she wept. "I am so sorry. I believed him. I should not have. I am sorry." The wolf's great head turned, slowly, painfully, and pressed against her. "Not your fault." His voice was fading. "Never your fault." His eyes closed. "No!" Senna screamed. "No! Wake up! Papa, please, wake up!" But he did not wake, and the forest went silent. He did not die. It was close. Closer than Vila wanted to admit. The blade had been poisoned, the same compound that had caused his earlier collapse, but concentrated. Lethal. She worked through the night, drew the poison out drop by drop, stitched the wound with hands that shook no matter how hard she tried to steady them, sang the old healing songs until her voice cracked and broke. Senna refused to leave. She sat in the corner of the healing chamber wrapped in blankets, eyes fixed on the man who had transformed back sometime near dawn. She did not speak, did not eat, did not sleep. She simply waited. On the third day, he opened his eyes. Vela was changing his bandages when it happened. She felt him tense beneath her hands, saw his gray eyes focus on the ceiling, then slowly track to her face. "Hello," she said in a hushed tone. "Hello." His voice was rough, ruined, beautiful. Something hot pressed against the backs of her eyes. "You almost died," she said. "Habit." She laughed despite herself. It came out wet and broken, movement from the corner. Senna was standing, her face pale and uncertain, hovering at the edge of the bed like she was afraid to come closer. Torvin saw her. His expression softened, broke open into something raw and unguarded. "Come here," he said. Senna did not move. "Please." The word seemed to unlock something. Senna crossed the room in 3 steps and climbed onto the bed, careful of his injuries, and pressed herself against his side. His arm came around her, holding her close. "I thought you died," Senna whispered. "I thought you died, and it was my fault. Not your fault." I believed him. He said my mother was alive. He said you were lying. I should have known. I should have. You are a child. His voice was firm despite its weakness. You trusted someone who seemed kind. That is not a flaw. Senna was crying now, silent tears that soaked into his shirt. She observed them. Something was shifting inside her. The wall she had built, the one made of grief and anger and 9 months of carefully maintained hatred, was crumbling. He had come for Senna. Poisoned, weakened, barely able to stand, he had come for her anyway, just like her brother had done for him. The realization settled into her bones like something heavy finding its home. They were the same, her brother and this broken king. The same stubborn, sacrificial impulse, the same refusal to let someone they cared about face danger alone. Her brother had chosen to save this man. Perhaps there was a reason. Valdrich, Tavon said. What happened to him? Imprisoned, Vela answered. Awaiting trial. He confessed to everything, the poison, the manipulation, the plan to restart the war. Tavon closed his eyes. I trusted him, he murmured, since I was a boy. He was my father's closest advisor. People hide themselves well, Vila said, sometimes for decades. He opened his eyes, looked at her, and sometimes they reveal themselves exactly when they need to. Silence stretched between them. Senna had fallen asleep against his side, exhaustion finally winning. Vila should leave, should give them privacy, should maintain the distance she had fought so hard to build. Instead, she sat down in the chair beside his bed. My brother, she said. His name was Tavon. Tavon went still. He used to make me practice stitches on fruit because he said I was too gentle with needles. She smiled, and it hurt. He sang off-key. Every healing song, perfectly wrong. He believed everyone deserved saving no matter which side they fought for. Vela. He would have saved you, she continued, even knowing who you were, what you had done. He would have saved you because that was who he was. I know, Tavon said, voice low. I know. Silence. I do not forgive you, Vela said, her voice cracked. I cannot. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. I would not ask you to. But she stopped, breathed. But I think I understand now. Why he did it. Tavon waited. He saw something worth saving, Vela said, and I am beginning to see it too. Something moved through Tavon's expression. Hope, fragile and uncertain. Stay, he said. Not as a prisoner. Not as leverage. Stay because you want to. Her heart was pounding. I want, she said slowly, choosing each word with care. I want to see who you become. Without the poison, without the manipulation, without the war. And if you do not like what you see, then I will leave. And this time, you will let me. He held her gaze. Deal. She extended her hand, he took it. And neither of them let go. 6 months later, spring arrived. The gates of the kingdom stood open. They had been open for 4 months now. Refugees moved freely through them. Traders, families, children who had never known anything but war learning what peace looked like. Vila stood in the courtyard, watching Senna chase the wolves across the grass. The child had grown, taller, brighter. The shadows that had lived in her eyes were fading, slowly but surely. She is fast, Tavon said, appearing beside Vela. She gets that from her wolves. My wolves are dignified. Your wolves knocked over 3 servants this morning. Tavon made a sound that might have been disagreement. Vela smiled. 6 months had changed many things. Valdrich had been tried and executed for treason. The council had been reformed. The refugees had been settled. The Southern Kingdom and the Northern Kingdom had signed a formal peace treaty, real peace this time, built on respect rather than subjugation. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Vela had stopped wanting to leave. She had not planned it, had not expected it. But day by day, conversation by conversation, she had found herself building something with this broken king and his adopted daughter. Something that felt like home. I have something to ask you, Tavon said. Vila looked at him. He was nervous. She could tell by the way his hands kept flexing at his sides. The great Alpha King, conqueror of kingdoms, terrified of a conversation. Ask, she said. Senna wants me to make it official. He cleared his throat. The adoption. She wants papers. A ceremony. She wants to be acknowledged as my daughter in the eyes of the kingdom. That is wonderful. Yes. He paused. She also wants you to be there. I would not miss it. Another pause. Longer this time. She wants you to be there, Torvin continued, as family. Vila's breath caught. Torvin turned to face her fully. His gray eyes held everything he struggled to say out loud. 6 months of quiet conversations, shared meals, hands brushing in corridors. A kiss once, in the healing chamber, soft and uncertain and over too quickly. He was not good with words, had never been good with words, but actions he understood. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. This belonged to my grandmother, he said. She gave it to my grandfather when they were young. Before the wars. Before everything went wrong. He opened the box. A ring. Simple silver, set with a single gray stone that caught the light like trapped starlight. I am not asking you to forgive me, he said. I am not asking you to forget. I am asking you to build something with me, something better than what either of us came from. Vila looked at the ring. She thought about her brother, about the choice he had made, about the man he had seen worth saving. She thought about Senna, about the family the child had assembled through sheer stubborn will. She thought about herself, about the woman she had been when she arrived, full of grief and fury and cold determination, about the woman she was now. I have conditions, she said. Name them. I will continue my work in the healing halls. I will not become a decoration. Done. Senna gets to choose her own name. If she wants to keep her birth name, she keeps it. Done. And you will tell me the truth. Always. Even when it is difficult. Even when you think it will hurt me. Torvin met her eyes. Done, he said. And the same from you. Vela smiled. She took the ring from the box and slid it onto her finger. Across the courtyard, Senna looked up. Her eyes went wide. Then she screamed, loud and joyful, and sprinted toward them with the wolves racing at her heels. She hit them both at full speed, arms wrapping around their waists, nearly knocking them over. Finally, she said, her voice muffled against their clothes. I thought I was going to have to do everything myself. Vila laughed. Torvin laughed too, the sound still rare enough to make her heart stutter. You did do everything yourself, Vila said. From the beginning. Senna pulled back, beaming. I know, she said proudly. Someone had to. She looked between them, her mismatched eyes, one amber, one brown, bright with satisfaction. So I have 2 parents now? Officially? Torvin knelt so he was level with her face. If you will have us, he said. Senna pretended to consider. Then she threw her arms around his neck. Yes, she said. Obviously, yes. She looked at them, the conquered healer and the broken king and the orphan who had brought them together. Family, she thought. Not the one she had lost, not the one she had been born into. Something new, something built from wreckage and choice and stubborn, impossible hope. Torvin looked up at her, Senna still in his arms. He smiled, and Vila smiled back. Thank you for listening. I hope this story found you when you needed it. These stories exist because of you, because you listen, because you share, because you take the time to tell me what moved you, what made you laugh, what made you cry. I am so grateful you are here. Until next time.